Okay, and welcome back. So hopefully you had a chance to review Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And now we're just going to really quickly, so that's slavery, okay? Abolitionism. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Thank you. Okay, good. Miss Maggie Conway is here working with me today. Abolitionism was the movement to abolish slavery. Now, you remember I said that there was like the northern states versus the southern states. The northern states had slaves. Like it's not like they were always not slave owners. They were like, maybe this isn't a great idea, and we should abolish slavery, and we should help to abolish slavery elsewhere. But they were by no means like innocent. So abolitionism before 1776, which is the American independence, all of the 13 colonies practiced slavery legally. It was legal. As time progressed, the northern states began lobbying to abolish slavery. They formed political groups to spread awareness and fight for equality. White people and Black people worked together, and it was seen as a moral issue. So it's interesting because both sides were using the moral imperatives based mainly on a Christian God, because North America was established largely by Christianity and people of Christian descent. So both sides used the same Bible and the same faith to back up their arguments. The North saying it is morally wrong and repugnant to own people because you have to treat others as you want to be treated, and your neighbor has to be treated the same way, and we're all equal in the eyes of God. And then the South was like, oh, but we actually have to give them God first. So it's important to own them as slaves and make sure that they're educated so that we can save their souls. So they both used their faith as backup, as evidence for their arguments, which I find fascinating. Okay, so you can also have a look. There's a link here. So when I post the slides to the Google Classroom, you'll be able to see this link, and it's really quite fascinating. It's about this group, the Jubilee Singers. They were very famous, and they brought the songs from slavery into the light of the world, essentially. Like, they made them popular and famous, and it was very difficult on them. So this is just a quick little article. You can choose to read it, you don't have to, but if you're interested in learning more about the songs of slavery and abolitionism, this is the site to go to. Okay, so another one of the songs from the abolitionist era was Down to the River to Pray. And there were actually many songs similar to this song that were code. So during the abolitionism movement, you had the development of the Underground Railroad, which slaves were able to traverse to get to freedom if they could escape their masters, their owners. So this rendition is actually sung by a woman named Alison Krauss, who is a very, very white woman, but it's a really beautiful rendition. And it's actually interesting. It's very hard to find quality recordings of African American people singing the songs of abolitionism and slavery. Like, it's been co-opted by a lot of like white blues and country singers, which is another interesting point that you can get into. But again, we have music fueling and aiding in a code way. Like, here's where you go to your next checkpoint so that you can safely get to freedom. And this information was being transmitted through song, and I find that fascinating as well. So by all means, take a minute to rewatch Down to the River to Pray by Alison Krauss, and we'll see you in a second. All right, welcome back. Okay, so the American Civil War, we've already mentioned this a couple of times here. You had the Confederates, that's where the Confederate flag comes from, and why a lot of people have a problem with it, because the Confederates were fighting to keep their slaves. And then you have the Northern soldiers. This Civil War lasted for about 4 years. The northern states were led by Ulysses S. Grant, and the southern states, the Confederacy, was led by Robert E. Lee, and they were primarily fighting over the right to own slaves and to whom the Constitution applied to under the law. The Union was I'm just realizing that I referred to the southern states as the Union at one point earlier in this lecture. Disregard that. They were the Confederacy. Sorry. The Union was fighting to say that the Constitution um, said that all men were equal, and that the Constitution should apply. The freedoms provided to American citizens should apply to people of African American descent. And the Confederacy did not believe so. They believed that their economy would collapse because their economy was based on the backs of Black people. So, with the support of President Abraham Lincoln, Grant fought against Lee and the Confederate soldiers who had seceded from the Union, declaring themselves independent from constitutional laws. So essentially, they were like, okay, if that's how you're going to run America, we're not going to be a part of America anymore. We quit, and now we are the Confederacy. It ended with the surrender of the Confederacy and the freeing of approximately 4 million slaves. There is a link here to the Emancipation Proclamation. It was delivered by President Abraham Lincoln, and it was issued about 18 months prior to them winning the law, but it was essentially a series of promises of what African Americans could expect if they were able to win, if the Union was able to, win the war. Again, not mandatory reading, but very interesting. Okay, so now I know this is a Wikipedia link. Okay, like don't throw rocks at me over it. Wikipedia, yeah, totally judge me. That's fine. Wikipedia is, in my mind, a diving board, right? It's a good place to start, and the links that are linked in the article are actually what you want to go and read more about. So that's the pool. Once you jump off the diving board, you're into the pool, you can get somewhere a little bit better. But this Wikipedia page has the lyrics to Michael Row Your Boat Ashore. And again, it has been co-opted and sung mainly by white religious organizations, but it's really a song that was written about the imagery of salvation and about how the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery could bring about the salvation of African Americans in the States. And it's talking about the River Jordan, but where Jesus was said to be baptized. And so it's that metaphor of like, if we can win the Civil War, then it means that we will be free, we will be saved. It will be like being baptized as an actual human being as opposed to a slave. So there's a lot of important symbolism in this song. And again, it's sung by many different communities of faith, but it was actually written as a song about freedom and hope for people who were slaves. Okay, so these songs of slavery, these spirituals, these hollers, as they were sometimes referred to, these coded songs, all led to the blues and jazz. And these are incredible art forms. The blues has that very succinct rhythm. It actually, the blues and jazz have a lot of crossover. A lot of early blues sounds a little bit more like Dixie or like swing music, like a jazz would. And it's when you get into like the really sad, heart-wrenching, gutsy blues that you start hearing the mourning, um, and you start hearing the pain of what it means to live and be a descendant, to live through and or be a descendant of slaves. So the next song you can go ahead and listen to, B.B. King is, in my opinion, the best blues musician of all time. He's an incredible musician. I really strongly recommend that you listen to some B.B. King. His musical talents are amazing. The lyrics he wrote, and the emotion, the sheer emotion that he sings with, it just fills my heart. Um, and this is actually "The Thrill Is Gone" is one of my favorite B.B. King songs, and it's sung with a woman named Tracy Chapman, who is also known for being a very blues, earthy, gutsy singer. So this is obviously a more modern version. However, the blues had this feeling. It had a certain progression of chords, and it had a rhythm to it that where you could like feel the same rhythm of what it must have been like to pick on a beat or to like use a pickaxe on a beat or to dig the soil on a beat. But it's taking on a new life. It's taking on a new genre of art form. Yeah, so take a minute and have a listen to BB